In this latest installment of things that definitely happened to me, I thought I'd tell you about what I found whilst I was going through some boxes of old family photo albums. I paused when I saw the corner of an envelope protruding from behind a very old family photo taken at Lake Wendouree in Ballarat. It must have been taken in the early 70s because it's the youngest I've ever seen my father in a photo, whilst obviously he was an adult. So this corner of golden paper was sticking out, just calling for me to yank it out and discover the secrets it contained. Well, as it turned out, it contained a letter that my great-grandfather, Jack Horner, had written to my great-grandmother, Alice Dance, later to become Alice Horner. Whilst he was away on some business or other from somewhere in Europe, I thought I might read it to you now. My dearest Alice Dance, as you know, I am somewhere in Europe, away from you because of some business or other. I cannot wait until I get home this spring from on high, and we can marry on the sunny beaches of that suburb we live in Melbourne. I won't bore you in describing those business ventures I've been engaged in these past 3 months, since I last wrote you, as I have had the most interesting and troubling experience that I feel compelled to share with you. So, as I was just finishing up having dinner with an old friend of mine, who I might add did seem in a very queer state throughout our meal, he did produce from his coat pocket half of a sweet biscuit, which he insisted I must take. I replied that I was not one for desserts, but as he insisted so, and his demeanour troubled me so, I thought better than to argue with him, but to put it in my coat pocket and to thank him kindly. I had forgotten that I had put said biscuit in my pocket until, as we were walking back to our respective hotels, and had come time for the inevitable parting of ways, he gave me a warning not to eat the biscuit until I should be safely and securely back in my room. This warning I heeded too easily on account of his very peculiar state. Anyway, later back in my hotel room, having my night clothes on, and being just about ready to hit the hay, I did feel a mild hunger pang, and thought, oh, how wonderful it would be to have a small morsel to munch on, before I call it a night. It was just at this moment when I again remembered the half a biscuit. In my peckish state, I had forgotten all about the warning that my old acquaintance had directed my way, so I ate the biscuit, which was surprisingly filling, brushed my chompers, and hopped in bed, looking forward to a luxurious night's rest. Well now, how little did I know of what the Lord had in store for me. No sooner had I got nice and comfortable, allowed the associations of the day to depart, and prepared to set sail for the delightful land of sleep, when my head it did start swimming. I felt at one moment like I was floating on high above the bed, and the next like I was being swallowed up by it, unable to resurface. As strange as these physical sensations were to endure, it was a mere entree compared to what was to follow. In a flash, my body was at once calmed, as if paralyzed, but full to the brim with sensation. In the center of the ceiling rose above did open up a small window, which did slowly grow larger and larger until it encompassed the entire rose, then the entire ceiling, then dripping down the walls like a waterfall, made of molasses, until finally nothing remained of the hotel room, which I had come to call home, whilst being away on some kind of business. From the cosy twilight of my temporary abode I had emerged in a bright and sunny place. As my eyes adjusted, I gradually began to distinguish somewhat familiar sights and sounds. There were gum trees and magpies, red bricks and comforting Australian accents. However, my familiar chums and I were far from alone. As my senses became accustomed to my new surroundings, I began to see that I was indeed perhaps back in Melbourne. But so were a great many other things in my realm that had no rightful place there. I'll give you some examples of the most disturbing of these unfortunate impressions of mine. Where homes used to be, now lay great behemoths of glass and concrete. Where there were roads, now lay tremendous paved areas with more flashing lights and signs than one could possibly process and comprehend. There were cars, but too, like the buildings, they had lost all of their character. They were more like blobs, but they did at times move very quickly. To summarize, everything was at once very shiny, but very dull, like the spark of our Lord had been sucked out of it. There were great big pictures everywhere, sometimes mounted very high up on these bland buildings. The images even changed as I was looking at them. At one moment would be a display featuring a happy-looking fellow holding an ale and a sandwich. At the next moment, a woman, almost naked as God made her. Oh, that reminds me. Do you still have that red dress? I simply cannot wait to get home and rip it off you and, yeah, maybe I should have read this letter in its entirety before making this video. Just bear with me while I skip forward a little. Okay. Now, Alice, the people. So strange, I could not comprehend what had happened to my town. There were so many of them. They were everywhere. Yet no one said hello when I passed them. Most of them had their heads down, plugs in their ears, their eyes fixated on a small black rectangle they were holding in one hand. When I chanced to catch a glimpse close up of one of these rectangular devices, I saw the same sorts of moving images and words that I'd seen on those giant picture boards on the buildings. And Alice, there were so many fat people. There were so many people that looked like they were suffering from some kind of terrible disease. But I could not understand it, as from all of my impressions there appeared to be ample of everything, with the one unfortunate exception of people's attention. This appeared to have entirely vanished from our town. Also, curious I was with the presence of so many foreigners in what vaguely resembled our land. There were Orientals, Indians, Europeans of every variety, and even lots of blacks. Negroes, not Aborigine. Come to think of it, I didn't see many Aborigines at all. I could not, for the life of me, work out what must have happened to this vast array of different folks that had resulted in them coming to our town. What possibly could have happened in all of their respective homelands to cause them all to arrive in our far and away corner of the world? Anyway, my dearest Alice Dance, soon to be Alice Horner, I was already overcome with feelings of sorrow and bewilderment when I did find myself outside of our most holy ground, our recently completed shrine to remember all our boys who gave up everything to protect our realm. Horrors of horrors, Alice. These unfortunate, misplaced Australians had filled in our glorious pool of reflection. And again, more concrete, in the shape of a papal cross. And on the side of our defence, our observatory, a most disturbing sight, where ought fly a king's flag in glorious red. Alas, a narrower navy blue flag with the wrong stars. And the mindless, distracted folks trampling with their boots all over our holy ground, desecrating the memory of our beloved Anzac. I awoke in the morning with a foggy head and a sombre heart, but it was nothing that a good hearty breakfast did not shake off. Only now, as I recall these disturbing visions, am I reminded why I stopped seeking the counsel of this peculiar friend of mine. Anyway, just thought I would share that with you, my darling, as I have no one else to tell it to. I cannot wait to see you again in our particular corner of Melbourne. Love always, Jack. Okay, so what's the point of this story? Well, first we've learned that my great-great-uncle was a bigoted, fat-shaming racist. I myself recognise that it's racist to notice the physical attributes of others that flow due to heredity from their ancestors. That's why I acknowledge the differences among people by recognising that they are all equally alike in their being different, apart from all obviously being better than white people. May we burn in hell. But perhaps more importantly, we learn that dangerous conspiracy theorists were around before John F. Kennedy was killed with 2 different caliber bullets fired from the same gun by Lee Harvey Oswald in Dallas in 1963. As a good citizen, I know that everything in this country is going in a positive direction, and that everything was, is, and always will be, as our government tells us it is, complete with updates. Yes, turns out that my grandfather was a narcotic-ingesting, fat-shaming, technophobic, time-travelling, lucid-dreaming, racist conspiracy theorist. So we can never be too careful as to who we listen to. And that's why I'm issuing this warning. Hopefully no one's paid attention to the animation that I've used to form the backdrop of this video. I hear word that some conspiracy-minded types are planning to raise a red ensign this Australia Day. So I'm including a link in this video of where you should definitely not order one from, as it would be dangerous to do so, and you would, by so doing, cause Black, Asian, transgender baby Jesus to cry. And we don't want to do that, do we? So I'm told by a conspiracy-minded acquaintance, who I don't listen to when I'm taking my jabs, that delivery of these flags, that you won't be ordering, takes about 7 days. So as long as you can hold off from ordering one for a week, you definitely won't have it in time to be tempted to raise the red on Australia Day. Furthermore, I have to add this additional warning. Do not, under any circumstances, look into the work of Stephen Spires or his racist white papers. He's simply another conspiracy theorist who has somehow adapted US sovereign citizen ideology to the Australian context, despite the US being a republic and Australia being a principality. Nothing to see here, folks. Nothing to see. 2 different caliber bullets. Nothing to see, folks. Always was. Always will be. Don't raise the red this Australia Day. Nothing to see. Nothing to see.